I'm suffering from a character crisis. I want to give every character a chance at becoming my main. This time, I played as Robin, who helped me understand the concept of tempo in Smash. And then, I put it to the test by entering a tournament. Robin is not considered a good character in Smash Bros. Ultimate. They're the second slowest character in the game, and unlike other sword fighters who can just freely swing at ghosts, anytime Robin uses Levin Sword or one of their tomes, it consumes durability. Once the charges run out, Robin will drop the item, and then the move becomes unusable, or worse, for several seconds. The push and pull that comes from durability changes the way you have to play Robin. Holding forward is simply not a good strategy when you can lose your most powerful offensive tool mid-swing. But at the same time, holding back and chucking L Thunder only works as long as you have your tome. The hard part when it comes to playing Robin is striking the balance between offense and defense. Durability forces Robin to adapt their game plan to the moment, and doesn't give them a simple strategy that they can adhere to the entire match. This limitation helped me identify one of my biggest weaknesses, and helped me to understand the meaning of tempo in competitive Smash. Tempo is a word that is thrown out a lot, but is very often misunderstood. To help explain the concept, I'm actually going to talk about tempo in a completely different game. A turn-based strategy game that's been played for thousands of years, and a fast-paced fighting game function very differently. But understanding tempo in chess will help us explain tempo in Smash. In chess, a high-tempo move is one that develops your piece while forcing your opponent to respond to your threat. Do this often enough, and you'll build an advantage that will eventually lead to
checkmate.
When the concept is applied to a game where both players are making moves at the same time, tempo can instead be defined as options that force reactions from the opponent. Take L Thunder, for example. Charging L Thunder immediately forces a response, but the real tempo advantage comes from how you capitalize on that response. If they jump over it, you can punish them with 11 forward air. Then, when they get sent off stage, you can set up the ledge trap with Arc Fire. One positive tempo interaction can snowball into a stock. Durability, however, throws a wrench in this gameplay loop. If you throw out an L Thunder and your opponent jumps in when you don't have Levin Sword, the standard response of forward air isn't going to work as well. Because Robin loses access to options throughout the match, it's even more important to understand tempo, because the inability to pressure can cause your opponent to react in different ways. Tempo is pressure that demands a response, but what Robin taught me is that sometimes the best option is to deliberately give up space or initiative so your opponent overextends. If you've consistently punished your opponent for jumping in when you're charging an L Thunder, how do they react when you don't have Levin Sword? Do they try to take advantage of the moment and become more aggressive? If so, giving up some stage can give you the opening to punish them. But what if you've swatted them out of the air so much that they continue to hold shield even when you don't have Levin? If that's the case, that means that the conditioning you've applied has caused your opponent to change their behavior in a way that benefits you. Taking center stage isn't flashy, but it's still a winning interaction that can snowball into an even stronger position. Robin's weaknesses helped me to understand tempo in a way that I never really expected. Robin losing moves mid-match taught me that tempo is relative to what options you have at any given moment. But tempo applies to more than just whether or not you have access to Levin Sword. Stage positioning and stock count matters a lot for determining the pace of the fight. At the start of the match, it's expected for both players to be cautious as they feel each other out. But if the stock count is 3-1 and they're recovering, the player who is ahead is much more likely to be aggressive. Many things in Smash can cause a player to have less options than the other, and once you've limited your opponent from a million options to just a few, that makes the job of the tactician that much easier. Robin has a lot more depth to their kit than I ever could have expected. For a character that the majority of the player base wrote off as a low tier, it came as a huge surprise when the Japanese Robin main Leaf placed 5th at Umabura SP12 last year. This is the first time Robin ever made top 8 at a major, let alone a super major, and it showed us that Robin still has a bright competitive future in this game. But how would I do with Robin in a bracket? It's time to put my training to the test and travel an hour away to a university to compete in their tournament. This wasn't your typical local, though. It was happening on Halloween, and to really show my devotion to Robin, I decided to put together a cosplay. After some thrifting and sewing, I'm proud to say I was able to put this together. Is the cosplay power-up enough to tip the scales in my favor? Out of 25 people, I was the 19th seed, which means I was projected to go 0-2 and beat nobody here. And to be honest, that wasn't too far off from how my results with Robin had gone so far. Despite really enjoying the character, 2 weeks before this tournament, I entered a different local, and there I lost both sets I played, and it wasn't close. By now, I'd had a whole month to practice this character, I got some coaching done by a good friend of mine off camera, and I finally felt like my Robin was ready to compete. My round 1 was against Sumo, who mains Samus. Unfortunately, my first 2 sets of this tournament I was unable to find the VODs for. In lieu of that, I'd like to talk about how the Samus-Robin matchup tends to play out. Robin is usually amazing at being the zoner in most matchups, but Samus simply outguns her. Charge shot has to be respected, and Robin just doesn't have the mobility to stop Samus from getting it. But the matchup is doable for Robin, thanks to Levin aerials just outwalling Samus in close quarters. And a lot of Samus players tend to corner themselves to get charge shot, which gives you a chance to stuff their attempt to get back to center stage. If you can get them off stage, Robin's ledge trapping even puts Samus to shame. It's not easy though, and I do lose the first game to Sumo. I realized that I was trying to jump in on Samus too much, and instead opted to have Sumo approach me. It's a lot easier for Robin to shut down an approach than to make an approach. I had to learn the Samus matchup on the fly, but it pays off, and I win my next 2 games.
Nice work!
I then had to fight Meeks, another Samus main. Meeks is someone that I've lost to multiple times in the past, and for good reason. He's the 3rd seed of the tournament. But getting the chance to fight a Samus the round before actually helps me mentally prepare for the matchup, and I do take the first game. But Meeks has exceptional adaptation, and I lose the next 2 games, dropping me into the losers bracket.
Defeated! Continue?
The nice thing about a double elimination bracket, though, is you get a second chance to keep the tournament streak alive. Already, I was doing better than I did at my last local, but I knew I could go further. My next opponent was Flea, who starts with Bayonetta. Bats within can make getting combos on Bayonetta very annoying, but with a back throw and an unfortunate SD, I'm able to get a lead that turns into a 3-stock. Flea decides that it's not worth it to continue playing Bayo and switches to Byleth. Byleth's range and ability to easily break shields can make him a scary opponent, but I make quick work of his first stock with an Elwyn spike. A weird tether helps me line up an F smash, and from there I get another 3-stock as I finish Flea off with an Arcfire ledge trap.
Way to go!
Bread was my next opponent, and they main Zelda. Zelda has very good tools against Robin, primarily Nehru's Love, making me think more about when I throw out my projectiles. It's back and forth with us both trading stocks. Phantom Knight with all its different timings can make approaches difficult for me, but charging Phantom Knight off stage leads to me winning the first game as I line up the Levin back air. I take advantage of this habit in the second game and even manage to get a kill with Bronze Sword. On the second stock, Arc Thunder helps me to make the shield small enough for the up smash to shield poke. Old habits die hard as I chase Bread off stage one more time while he's charging Phantom and take the set 2-0.
Way to go!
At this point in the bracket, I had officially made it into best of 5 territory, and if I win my next set, I will have made top 8. Electric Wind Girlfriend was my next opponent, and her character pool is one of the deepest in the state. For Robin, she decides to play Wolf, which can be a very tough matchup for me. Wolf's laser is transcendent, which means it goes through any projectile and can make charging my Thunder Tome a lot more annoying. Wolf also comes packed with a reflector, which makes the zoning game very difficult. Top that off with incredible airspeed and kill power, and I have to be very careful with how I use my weapon sword. On the last stock, I'm behind, and I go for a Nosferatu, but mess up the B reverse, causing me to lose Game 1. I decide to go back to Pokemon Stadium for Game 2, and even though I'm losing at first, a combo gets me back into the game. But I get the sour spot instead of the sweet spot, and by the time I take her first stock, I'm already at kill percent on my second. She capitalizes on the lead and pushes the advantage, taking us to a Game 3. I decide a change-up in scenery is needed, and I go to Hollow Bastion. She takes the first stock with an up smash, but not too long after, I stop the bleeding with a down smash. It's still not looking good for me, but a good string on stock 2 gives me the lead. I barely maintain the lead, but a down smash shield poke swings the tempo in my favor, helping me to line up the game-winning Arc Fire. I don't ban Pokemon Stadium, so we're back on what was working for her. She nearly deletes my stock in the first couple of seconds, and while I do survive that, I can't make it back to center stage because she's caught on to my habit of Leaden Fair from ledge. That being said, my second stock does get deleted, and I'm now down 3 stocks to 1. I do what I can to make the comeback, but the damage has been done, and I get eliminated at 9th place.
New record! Final results.
Robin has flaws. The resource mechanic that they have to deal with legitimately nerfs them at times, and they are agonizingly slow. But a good tactician knows how to win, even when they don't have all the tools at their disposal. And Robin has taught me a lot about Smash that I wouldn't have learned as easily from a character that simply has it all. Tempo is a nebulous concept, but by being forced to play a character that loses tools throughout the match, I was then able to see situations in which every character loses access to tools they would otherwise normally have. That being said, when Robin has everything, you're a force to be reckoned with. Robin has the right move for practically any situation, and when you achieve flow state with this character, you get to become the tactician who knows your opponent's moves before they even do. Understanding your opponent's options is just as important as knowing the limitations of your own options, but when you account for both, you can position yourself for the checkmate. Learning how to position myself preemptively was hard to learn with such a slow character. The challenge lies in stopping your opponent before the tempo swings too heavily in their favor. Robin with the lead hiding behind an Arc Fire is very difficult to approach. However, when Robin is forced to make proactive decisions, they start to suffer. As much fun as I had with Robin, I'm not done suffering from my character crisis. I've now mained 38 different characters, and I've been surprised by what I've learned so far. But I've still got a long road to go, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm almost at 10,000 subs, and I plan on hosting a tournament to celebrate the occasion. And if you really want to support me, my Patreon is linked in the description below, and you can also use code Tuesday at checkout at handheldlegends.com to save you 10% on your order. Now that my journey with Robin is complete, my patrons have chosen my next main. It's time to find the aura within me as I try out Lucario. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Tuesday. And of course, I'd like to shout out my patrons. Your guys' help lets me work on this channel in a way that I wouldn't be able to if it was just a passion project on my own. Special shoutouts to Warty Warty, Scuba Doo, Ruby Roo, and Dr. Pepper for your continued support. Thank you.